Smithtown University's fundraisers succeeded in getting donations from 80% of the potential donors that they contacted. Okay, so 80% of the people that they contacted actually gave them donations. Great. This success rate, exceptionally high for university fundraisers, this success rate is great, right? Does not indicate that they were doing a good job. So the author says that it doesn't indicate that they were doing a good job. Now, this is his conclusion. Makes sense? Of course, this is a premise where he tells us that, their success rate was 80%. This is a premise, and this is a conclusion. Okay. On the contrary, since the people most likely to donate are those who who have donated in the past, good fundraisers constantly try less likely prospects in an effort to expand the donor base. The high success rate shows insufficient canvassing effort. So he's saying, there are two types of people. One are the ones who have been donating and who have donated before. And then the other type are the fresh people. Right? So he's saying that the people who have donated before are the ones who are most likely to donate. Whereas the new people, the ones that you get in touch with for the first time, they're of course little less likely to donate. So then normally, to expand their donor base, these universities, they keep trying to get in touch with newer and newer people, right? They try to get in touch with the less likely prospects, as it says over here, right? So then he says that the high success rate shows that they did not try and get in touch with the new people too many. Yeah, they probably just went to the old people, they just got donations from them, and that's it. That is the okay. So in case I were to put it in a diagram, we've discussed before in a webinar how we can use sets to solve a lot of CR questions, how we can use weighted averages to solve a lot of sets CR questions. So we'll use our weighted averages concept that we discussed in the previous webinar. So here, let's say, so they're saying there are two types of people, right? The ones who have donated before and the ones who are new. So let's say the ones who've donated before, they are likely to donate, 90% likely to donate. Yeah. So out of every 100 of those people, 90 will donate, right? Now, let's say the new people, we're talking about the new ones, and here are the old previous ones. Yeah. Let's say only 50% are likely to donate, the new people. So then in case, we have 50-50 of both, that is one of this and one of this, if the, ratio of both these are equal, then we will get, let's say, a 70% success rate. Does that make sense? Right in the middle, right? We're talking weighted averages. Makes sense. In case there is one person new and one person old, and this person is 50% likely and this person is 90% likely, overall the success rate would be in the center, right? 1:1. Now they're saying that, and I mean, they're saying what works, but then since this university had a success rate of 80%, that actually they had a high success rate, they're saying that what this is not a good thing. Don't think that, oh, 80% is great. Why? Because they're saying that what this shows is that they did not canvas enough. That means that the ratio of 50% is to 90% of the people, this would be what, 1:3 in this case. Makes sense, right? Because this distance is 3, this distance, just think of weighted averages, right? So then the number of people, the ratio of the number of people here will be 1:3. So they're saying that, the 3 people that they contacted were anyway the old people who were more likely to donate, and they contacted only one new person. And that is why they're saying that they didn't do a good job. Yeah. This is what they are saying. Now, keep in mind that, when my average, it moves to 80% instead of a 70%, if it is an 80%, there are two reasons that it could be this, right? One, I know that, okay, so fewer of these new people were contacted. This is possible. Fine. Then my average would be closer towards 90. But it is also possible that my success rate with the new people is also very high. What if of the new people, 70% people actually did donate? And then here, anyway, the old people is 90%. I mean, it won't go more than 90, right? Where will it go more than 90? So then if it is something like this, then also my average could be 80%, which is very high. And I could have put in enough effort to canvas too, right? For every 1% that, previous person that I contacted one new person also. So I would have contacted, I would have put in sufficient canvassing effort also, and my the success rate could have been higher also, in case over here my success rate was very high with the new people, right? Then this is another explanation for 80%. Does that make sense? Instead of 70%, if the success rate is 80%, there are two different types of explanations for this. One is that I did not put enough effort with these people. I only talked to one of these people and three of these people, right? One is this explanation. Another is that I did talk to enough of these new people, but I convinced them so well that here also the success rate was higher than what it usually is. Then also my success rate could have been, average success rate could have been higher. Does that make sense? I mean, this is the most important point of the argument. After that, it is fairly simple, right? Makes sense now? Okay, now which of the following, if true, provides most support for the argument? For the argument means, of course, most support for the conclusion. What is the conclusion? That it does not indicate that they were doing a good job. So essentially, my conclusion or my argument here is that they did a bad job, right? And I have to support that. Guys, if need be, write this down, because it can get, when there are a few negatives, not doing a good job, and then you have to support it, and then there'll be options that will weaken it, so it will get extremely confusing. So it doesn't really matter, it will take you 10 seconds. If you need to, the conclusion, just make sure that you just jot it down. You say bad job, or think about it in your mind. My conclusion is that they did a bad job, and I have to support that. I have to say that they did a bad job. Okay. All right. Look at option A. So Smithtown University's fundraisers were successful in their contact with potential donors who had never given before. So they are talking about these people, the new people, about as frequently as were fundraisers for other universities in their contacts with such people. Look, what is it saying? It's saying that, that these people were successful about, as frequently as is normal for other universities also. So what they're saying is that their success with the potential donors who had never given before was 50% only. The standard, whatever is the industry standard, it was the 50% only. They were not extremely successful with the new donors, and that is why they did not get this 80%. They actually were as successful as they usually are, as people usually are. Yeah. What does this mean then? Then why did my 70 go to 80? Then the author's argument makes sense. Then what he's saying is makes sense, that they did not do a good job because they contacted very few of these people. They contacted only one of these people for every three, that the three of the older people, of the previous people that they contacted, right? Then it makes sense. Then he's saying that I'm saying that I'm eliminating this possibility. This did not happen. My option A is saying that this did not take place, which means then the only explanation for my 80% is that this took place. The ratio was 1:3, which means that their canvassing effort was not good, which means that they did do a bad job. It supports what the author has said. Yeah, so this makes sense. I'll hold to it. Hold on to it. Look at B. This year, the average size of the donations to Smithtown University from new donors, when the university's fundraisers had contacted, was larger than the average size of donations from donors, blah, blah, blah. Doesn't matter. Okay, I'm comparing here the average size of the donations, which is absolutely irrelevant to my argument. So I'll leave it now and move on. Why? I'm not talking about the average size, how much money was each donation worth, right? I'm only talking about the number of potential donors, right? Universities fundraise succeed in getting donations from 80% of the those 80% people. Out of these 80%, most could have given just $1 also. It doesn't matter, they are still donors, right? They are going to be counted in this 80%. I'm talking about the number of people who gave the donations, the amount, the average size of the donation. That is absolutely irrelevant, right? So I ignore this. Look at the second one. C. This year, most of the donations that came to Smithtown University from people who had previously donated to it were made without the university's fundraisers having made any contact with the donors. What is this telling me? It's saying that, the people this year, the people who had donated previously also, they were not even contacted by the university. Yeah. So essentially the ones, here we have data about they contacted, that 80% of the potential donors they contacted, then, these people gave the donation, right? Here they are saying that the old people that we're talking about, the ones who had given before also, they were not even contacted. Most of them were not even contacted. They had come on their own, which means that this 80% is great then, because most of the people that the university actually contacted were these new people. They didn't even contact most of the old people, right? So essentially then, if it all, it weakens, it seems to say that, hey, they did a good job, the university did a good job. So then it seems to weaken my conclusion, my argument. It certainly does not strengthen my argument for sure. Yeah, there are other aspects as well, it doesn't matter, but it certainly does not strengthen my argument for sure. Yeah. Look at D. The majority of the donations that fundraisers succeeded in getting in Smithtown University this year were from donors who had never given to the university before. Again, it is saying that the majority, more than 50% of the donations, I mean, here we are assuming 1:1, and we're saying, perhaps that's good, but they're saying that more than 50% were from people who had never given before, who had never given to the university before. This shows canvassing effort. This shows great job, right? Again, this shows a good job that they did actually manage to get a lot of new people to donate. So then again, this is not a bad job. So this is also not an answer. We have to look for an option that says that they did a bad job. So this is also not the answer. Again, do keep in mind that if we do not make a note of what exactly the conclusion is saying, we are going to get confused in these particular options. Yeah. Look at E. More than half of the money raised by Smithtown University's fundraisers came from donors who had never previously donated to the university. This is irrelevant to the argument. Why? Because it talks about the money, more than half of the money. Let's say if 2 million was, raised, that, if they're talking about more than 1 million, the amount of money is absolutely irrelevant. Again, as we know that we're just talking about the number of people. So this information doesn't help me in any way, right? So this is also incorrect. So then, of course, our answer is A over here. The correct answer is A. Does that make sense? Yeah, it is a bit of a confusing question. It is something that people usually do struggle with. So just take a look. Is not okay? Is the conclusion not the high success rate shows insufficient canvassing effort? How can we decide on the conclusion? So the conclusion of the argument is the one point that anyway, even if you take that as the conclusion, doesn't really matter. But then the conclusion, the main conclusion of this argument is that it indicates that they were it doesn't indicate that they were doing a good job. It is that they were doing a bad job. Look, the conclusion of an argument doesn't necessarily always need to be the last sentence. Of course, we know that. Think about it is the one sentence which is in sequence when you're starting. Let's say if you are telling the argument to someone, if you're saying it to someone, you will end it with that one particular, and that is why I'm saying that they did not do a good job, right? Everything else, it kind of leads up to that particular conclusion, right? Again, the high success rate shows insufficient canvassing effort is a conclusion that he is making. It is kind of an intermediate conclusion, and then the main conclusion will still be that they are not doing a good job. Look, your conclusion normally has those qualitative words, right? Good, bad, ugly, because I mean there's no way to measure these, right? So if I think about it, in this entire argument, if I have to say that the author wanted to tell me this, and that this has to be like just like 5 words, yeah, and nothing more than that. So does the author want to tell me? Nothing else, just these 5 words, that he wanted to tell me this, and for that he made up this whole story. He told me about the donations and 80% and this, that, and everything, right? That one point that he's making, what is that? That the success rate does not indicate that they were doing a good job. Basically, the point he wants to make is that the university did a bad job. Don't think that because it's 80%, then it's not a good job. No, it's bad. It's bad. He's saying, and then he's giving you explanation for this, right? Why? On the contrary, since the people that were most likely to donate, blah, 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 blah. So then this high success rate shows insufficient canvassing effort, so essentially, so, based on this, and the people most likely to donate this, first he's explaining, first he starts with this, are those who have donated in the past. Then, so good fundraisers try to increase their donor base. Now, the high success rate shows that they did not put in enough effort, insufficient canvassing effort. So, this success rate does not indicate that they were doing a good job, right? This would be my last sentence. So, and after all of this, I'll say, okay, so this shows that they did a bad job, right? So this is what the main point that he wanted to say. So always do keep in mind, and you'll get that qualitative word somewhere. If you have a qualitative word, then it is most likely a conclusion. And this is exactly what he wanted to say. This thing, I can use this thing, the high success rate shows, in to explain this conclusion, right? That they did a bad job. Can I use this to explain this? The high success rate shows insufficient canvassing effort. I cannot. This leads up to this. So I have a premise, then I have a premise, then I have maybe an intermediate conclusion I'm deriving from the premise. And then finally, I have my main conclusion, right? My main conclusion is derived from all of this. Does that make sense? That this point of what is the conclusion of the argument, it is one of the most important, one of the most important point of most of the argument questions. When we have plan questions, then what is the aim of the plan? That is the most, because that is the aim works as a conclusion. And in your arguments, what is the conclusion? Once you're able to identify that correctly, then your question is half done. You already, you're on your way to get the correct answer. Then that is the most important point. So do read up very properly on how to identify a conclusion. That is very, very essential. And we say that, okay, there's not enough time, and verbal has gotten more challenging and it's very difficult to finish it on that. That's not that, because CR, you can hasten up. Of course, before this we had sentence correction, that was fabulous because it didn't take time at all, so we had more time. But now, of course, we have lesser time. So in CR, you can hasten up if you really do understand what is going on really well, right? So, like, for example, over here, and this is one of the most difficult questions that you can potentially see. I mean, something like this is one of the most difficult things that you can potentially see on an actual test. But this one, I know that this is irrelevant, right? So once I understand my argument well, once it is clear to me what it is, then I know this is totally irrelevant. Then I know this is totally irrelevant the moment I read it. This I know is doing the opposite of what it is supposed to do. This I know is doing the opposite of what it is supposed to do. So, there is absolutely no confusion there, right? Some questions are, done. Some questions are done using pre-thinking. Some questions are done using elimination of the options, right? So, and different kind of questions require different strategies. So, for example, when there's some new information, like for example, in explain the paradox or in strengthen or in weaken, then you eliminate the options, or in inference for that matter as well. But in case you have a method question, not the dialogue one, but the argument proceeds by, for example, in that method question, or in flaw in reasoning, or in assumption, these are perfect for pre-thinking, right? So think about where is the gap, think about what you have to, and the options, you will get your answer in the options, because sometimes the options are rather confusing in these kind of questions. Whereas in strength and weaken, in inference, and in explain the paradoxes, there are just so many different possibilities which are possible. You cannot think of them beforehand. Your answer could be anything. So that is why no point, but then you eliminate the options, right? So this, which is for most support. Yeah. So we're looking for strength in question over here. So this also, here also, eliminate options to get to the correct answer. Is that okay? Yeah, Divya. So in the modules also, I have mentioned that where we need to pre-think and where we need to eliminate the options. Yes. Yes, you can check them up. As I said that, especially in the updated ones, I certainly remember I have. And the ones that I am updating now, and those also I am mentioning. So, by the weekend, I think that data will be there in all the modules. Yeah. Okay, great. I think, guys, we are done for today. And I hope that these three questions are clear to you. They are some of the toughest questions, but I hope that they make sense now. Yeah, I'll see you next time. Most likely, we will do algebra. Most likely, we'll do absolute values because some of the learners are facing some problems, especially in the absolute values 2 module, the one which involves graphing. So we'll likely to take a look at that next week. Yeah. Anyway, I'll inform you guys ahead. So, all right. See you next week. Bye.